So we're finally at the Netherbrain, and there's are a ton of ways to approach this fight. You can skip the first part on top of the brain entirely if you just go invisible, and then you open the portal to the brain, and you can go right in and fight it. There are so many ways you can approach this, but I went with a more brute force method. Again, it's just as a way to show that you can overcome the greatest odds if need be. And as you can see, I've also sided with Orpheus against the Emperor just so that I have him against me as well. Never did like the guy. So, while you're on top of the brain, nothing really changes in Honor Mode besides all of the NPCs having more health. And in this case, I open by trying to take down the red dragon first. I go for the Mind Blast with a high-end character. I get the stun, which is going to allow you to get off a guaranteed disintegrate because they can't use dex throws, I believe. And I discovered something right away, which I didn't even know was a thing. You can use Chain Lightning on the red dragon, and it will hit him multiple times, or rather, it'll consume all three of the chain lightning bolts, as it were. And I've done some research, and it appears to be because the dragons have multiple hitboxes. So instead of arcing off and hitting other NPCs like I originally wanted, every single one of those lightning bolts is striking the dragon itself. So after two chain lightnings and one disintegrate, I've already got it down to 64 health. It started with 520, and that is an insane amount of damage output. So we quickly finish it off, and then I start on the Emperor because I don't want him to Mind Blast us. We fail our save, and we lose a turn to stun. The Dream Guardian NPCs work the same way. They have annoying abilities, but are otherwise fine to deal with. You've got the Tentacles, which remain the same also. And then you've got the other Mind Flayers who just sit there and spam Magic Missile at you. Those, I think, would be the next highest in priority just because that Magic Missile is so damaging, and they can all just sort of free cast while you try and take care of the minions below. So we're going to try and fly and Misty Step over to them and deal with that as quick as possible. I think that the allies that you get during the game are generally fairly useless in this fight. Even on normal mode, they don't really do much other than one exception, which is take hits for you, because the Illithids who are spamming the magic missile always seem keen to attack them for you. So generally, while I'm cleaning up the top of the brain and my characters have less to do, I'll just have them summon those allies with their turn, and just so that they can take hits. That's the only reason. And I guess clean up on top of the brain while you're inside of it, though I don't think that's actually necessary. I expected the Nautiloid enemies that spawn from the ships after 4 turns would be more intimidating, but it's actually the exact same amount of enemies that you would deal with before. You'll either have the one Illithid or group of Intellect Devourers, and those are easily taken care of, so the time limit is really pointless. There's nothing to worry about there. So now we'll move on to the portion where you're inside the crown and fighting the Netherbrain itself. And this is where things do get different. So in Honor Mode, you have the Aegis of the Absolute, and it's going to use that at the end of every turn, and whatever damage types it took during that round is going to be immune to them on the next round. And that's a really interesting ability, and I didn't have a big plan for that necessarily. I knew that my characters hit really hard, so I wasn't really worried about damage. So my only thought was to go in, do as much damage on one turn, wait a turn basically while doing nothing, maybe spam spell scrolls, and then on the next turn finish it off. And that's basically what happened. The only other thing you have to worry about is the Orbs of Negation. It's spawning 2 now instead of 1, so you're rapidly running out of room. This could have been a problem since all of my big damage comes from melee for the most part, and by the time I defeated the brain, I had 2 rounds left, and there was an Orb of Negation on the only platform remaining in melee, so if I hadn't been able to finish it that turn, I would have been forced to retreat and not even been able to hit it in melee range. I would have had to rely on a ranged caster to finish it off, and I don't know if I could have done that. However, if you had skipped the previous courtyard fights and then the fight up to the Netherbrain stem by turning invisible and just flying past all of those enemies, you should have all of your buffs, you should have all of your illithid powers, use all your potions, use everything. You don't have to save anything anymore, use it all for this. And I actually want to make another note while talking about the Netherbrain's health. So it's up from 300 in normal to 450 in tactician. And what's interesting is that I had never gotten a nat 20 on the 99 roll when you're trying to dominate the brain. But this gives you, or rather gives the Netherbrain, a debuff called Against All Odds, which lowers its health by 20%. So in this case, it was lowered to 360. So that's a difference of 90 points there, and thinking about it now, that could have been disastrous if I hadn't actually done that. I didn't really account for damage, I didn't do any normal calculations before encountering the brain, so that could have been what saved me in hindsight. So that's it. If you have made it this far, and you've gotten all the items, defeated all the bosses, you're decked out in all the best gear, you've got all the best potions, you've got your potion of psychic resistance. As long as the dice gods do not fail you, you should win soundly. And I hope you do. If you've been following along, I really appreciate it. This is just something I do in my spare time. I'm really passionate about D&D and Baldur's Gate 3, and I've had a lot of fun. Thank you for watching. May our paths cross again.